Have you heard of a podcast? Well, everyone's talking about them. It is the latest and greatest way to create content and be an expert in your industry. I'm going to show you easy ways to start podcasting, how to get guests, and ultimately how to syndicate that content online. Podcast. Do I look younger now? Sometimes there are trends in digital marketing. Podcast used to be like for the nerds, like people who had very specific interest in one specific thing. Well, those days are gone. Podcasts have become mainstream, and through things like iTunes and Apple Podcasts and Stitcher and some of these podcast sites, you can find a podcast on anything that makes you happy or that you're interested in. So as an expert in your field, how do you create content and that's focused around what you know for sure? Podcasting is a great way. Remember, in some of my other videos, I talk about how an expert should focus on one piece of content and do it really, really well, then give that over to your vendors and share amongst all your social platforms. A podcast is perfect because you line up guests who make you look smarter. I mean, I need all the help I can get. So if I can get people from Canva and Yahoo and Google, and I can get them on a podcast and I interview them for 12 to 15 minutes, that makes me look instantly smarter. And we just get on the phone, I use a Zoom meeting, and we have a conversation. And I record it, and then I publish it. Now, there was a lot of learning moments as I went through this whole process. So I want to walk you through some of the elements that are critical that you'll need to have for a podcast to be successful. First of all, do you have time? This is a very time-consuming process. And I've done about 20 podcasts. I'm on hiatus now because I'm doing video. So I feel like it's very important for you to pick and choose. I did 20 podcasts. It was fun. It was a lot of herding cats, however. Chasing down guests became the hardest thing we had to do. So I would pick a list of all these people I wanted on my podcast. I would find them in LinkedIn, and then I would have my assistant sort of get a hold of them and see if we could get them on an interview. Well, as podcasting becomes more and more popular, these people are getting a lot more requests for podcasting, and they're not getting paid to be guests on these podcasts. So if you're going after someone who's really famous, probably not going to get them. Try to really look at guests who have a very specific knowledge in one specific area that relates to your field. Those are going to be people that are much more inclined to be interviewed than not. Okay, the next thing is, you'll see here on my screen, this is my podcast page. As I scroll down, you'll see that I've got the introduction to the podcast. I've also got what they call a podcast thumbnail. So when you go into a podcast and you search, or you go into a podcast directory and you search for these podcasts, they all have these little squares. So I have a custom logo just for my podcast called Search Party. That's the name of my podcast. And then underneath it is the Essential Online Marketing Business Podcast and my photo and then my title. It's very important that you have a face on these thumbnails because when I'm going through all of the different marketing experts who are doing podcasts, the ones that have faces always do better than the ones that just have text. So remember to always put your face on anything that you want more of a response to. There's reasons why realtors put their faces on their business cards because they know that it's about facial recognition and recognizing them when you go to buy a house. By having your face on things, it's important, and I know a lot of people don't feel real comfortable with that, but for podcasting, it's all about pulling back the curtains and making sure they know who they're talking to and who they're listening to. Then we come down here, you'll see that all these podcasts have been recorded. And then these are the major podcast outlets. You have Google Play, you have iTunes, and you have a tool called Stitcher. Now there's a lot of other things that you can subscribe to. And then of course, you can do it through CastBox or Dog Catcher, a podcasting for Android, which works great. And I have links right here. So here's the big trick. It's well, what is a podcast exactly? Is it different than a radio station, or what exactly is a podcast? A podcast is similar to a website, except the fact that it's all audio. Okay, so it's like a mini radio station on a very specific topic. All right, so here's a tool called Libsyn. And Libsyn is going to help you syndicate your content. So here's how it works. I get someone on the phone on a Zoom meeting, I have a list of questions that I've already prepared. Very important on your preparation here is that you really looked at their website, at their LinkedIn, you find out what school they went to, you find out what books they've written, so you're fully prepared when you get on that call with them to ask them really good quality questions. Secondly, make sure that you have prepped your guest beforehand on what to expect. A lot of people are not comfortable being on a radio interview, which is more or less what it is. And you want to make sure that their audio is good, that they can get on the Zoom meeting, that they're not in their car, they're not driving to the airport or waiting to board a plane, that they're in a quiet location that is going to be great for recording. Now on Libsyn, you come in here and you set up an account. Now I use a tool called Podfly. It's a great company. Two guys help you. Once you have that Zoom recording, you send it to them and then they create the podcast for you. Now I hired a gentleman who has this wonderful voice, and his name is Glenn Thayer, and he is a wonderful voiceover. I've got that whole, welcome to Heather Lutze podcast, and it sounds very official. Now Libsyn is what syndicates it to all of the different sites. Now once you're in here, you can go ahead and you can take a look at all the content, and they give you a beautiful dashboard to be able to do this. And you can look at all your content. You can also see how is that content doing? How is it performing? I am amazed at the amount of watch time or listen time I have on these videos. It is crazy. Let me just click one of these here. So what we can do is we can come in here to the details. All right, you'll see here that I've named it Neen James Attention Pays. That was my interviewing. The subtitle is How to Drive Profitability, Productivity, and Accountability. And then I can, of course, come in here and you'll see that I have a whole description of her bio as well as her photo. So it's important that we understand that it be findable, that I have all the right images on it, and that when I share this to social, people can click on that and immediately listen to it on their own mobile device or wherever they're listening to it. So podcasting, a lot of work. However, if that's the one thing you're going to focus on, then you need, of course, the guests. You got to have the Zoom meeting. You need to have the Libsyn account. And if you're not going to produce your own audio, then you need to have a company like Podfly, Podfly, to have them produce the audio. They upload it to Libsyn, which then syndicates it to all the podcast sites and software and plugins. Give it a try. Go in there, knock yourself out. You'll get better and better over time. The more interviews you have, the better you will get. Podcasting is a lot of fun. But again, look at your life as a marketer. What do you want to put your energy into? Is it videos like I'm doing now? Is it a podcast? Don't make yourself overworked and don't spread yourself too thin. Do one thing really well, and podcasting might be a perfect fit for you. Isn't podcasting totally cool? Like, I just feel younger even doing podcasting. So we got to do what we got to do. But podcasting can be a great way to build your business and show your expertise. It's not for everyone. So think about it. How can I create a podcast that's going to be really impactful to my business? Well, if you subscribe to my channel and hit the bell, you're going to get notified every day of my new videos. I am committed to making sure that you don't waste $1 on a marketing effort that's not going to put dollars in your bank account. So stay tuned, keep watching for my videos, and I'll see you on the next call.